So thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. As Hannah mentioned, my name is Connie Wall, and my husband Patrick has had an American Family Insurance Agency for over 20 years. So we have our own business, and it's very near and dear to our hearts to help other people that have small businesses, are starting out, or have been in business for a long time, help you to be successful and help you to better understand how to protect your dream and your business and make sure that you get to keep doing what you love doing. So I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate that. Just as Hannah mentioned, go ahead and put, if you have questions as we go along, questions in chat. Sometimes I see them, sometimes I just get rolling along and I miss them, but I really think we have an hour, and I will probably only take about 25 minutes of your time. So we can definitely have the time to go through any questions you have. Feel free to jot down my contact information here. I'd be more than happy to talk to you offline if you don't have a question for the group, but you have something specific regarding insurance. I'd be happy to answer that question for you if you want to call, email, or text me at that number too. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is, why do you need insurance? What is the reason for having insurance? So your business and its earning power are your biggest asset, and you want to protect it. Leaving it vulnerable could allow it for it all to be taken away from one big lawsuit or a large claim that you didn't have protection for, or you didn't have enough protection for. And it's just not, it's not worth it to let something so small get in the way of protecting it. So the way you have your business structured, I know some of you have taken courses from the legal side of things through SBDC, which is great. And they will talk about your corporate structure, whether it's LLC or a corporation or a sole proprietorship. That's going to protect your personal assets. And your business insurance are going to protect your business and your business assets. So we're going to fill in the gaps there for that. Sometimes you need to have insurance because it's legally required. So an example of that is workman's comp in Colorado, and we're going to talk about this here in just a few minutes, but workman's comp is required by law. You may be in an industry that is regulated and you're required to have certain coverages. So legally required and to protect your business, there's lots of reasons to make sure you have the right coverage for your business. And just to give you a point of reference, the average cost of insurance for a very small, regular, normal business can be as low as $500 a year. On average, for our agency, the companies that we insure, it's less than $100 a month. So it depends on the size of your business and what you have going on and what your risk exposure is. But that's just a good point of reference for you. It's not hopefully as expensive as you're thinking it is. I want to talk first about to anyone who is operating their business out of their home. It's become a lot more popular, especially since the pandemic. And I just want to address that and make sure that you guys have the right coverages if that's what you're doing. So one thing to check on is, does your insurance company know that you have this business that you're operating out of your home? Talk to your agent, let them know, because you want to make sure that it's not excluded. You want to make sure that they are aware of it so that there's no question if there's a claim. And you also want to check and make sure you have adequate limits. So what you want to find out from your agent is, are the limits that you have for your home policy shared with your business? And if they are, then perhaps you need to raise both of those. You need to raise those limits so you have enough to cover everything, your personal liability as well as your business liability. Another thing to think about is, will claims from your business affect your personal home insurance rates? And very likely they would. So if you want to keep those things separate and you don't want your business affecting your personal expenses, that's another reason for having a separate policy for your business. Some things to ask your agent, or to look at your policy, your current home policy with maybe a business exposure written into it. Does it provide specialized coverage like employee dishonesty, accounts receivable coverage? We're going to go through these things. Make sure that your policy has those coverages that you need. A lot of times it's hard to get those specialized coverages on just an endorsement on your homeowner's policy. Another thing to think about is, would your policy cover you for defense costs if you're accused of something? And does your policy provide no-fault medical payments? So if you ever have employees or customers coming to your home, maybe to pick up a product or visit with you and talk to you, you want to make sure with your agent that if they are injured as they're walking up to your house or inside your house, that that would be something that would be covered. So those are all things to think about if you are operating your business out of your home. What I want to talk about next is go into some basic terminology of insurance, go through what these items mean. You can then check and see if you already have a policy. Are these things included in my policy, or are these things that I need to check with my agent on because it's relevant to my business? So general liability, that's our very basic liability exposure coverage. It includes product liability, operations, premises coverage. It's just basically what everyone needs that owns a business. So an example of a claim, let's say you own a coffee shop and a customer comes in and purchases a hot drink. We've all heard about this thing happening. They go out to their car and they go and lift it up by the lid, and it's not completely secure to the cup. They spill it and hurt themselves. And they sue you as the business owner for not securing the cup. Whether that's true or not, that general liability will cover you, your defense, and a claim if it has to be paid out. Products and completed operations. This is relevant to those of you that have a manufacturing business or someone who sells manufactured parts. So this covers the products that you're selling if they cause a problem. So an example for this would be, let's say that you sell vehicle parts, and you sell a part to a customer that ends up being defective and causes, for some reason, that vehicle to get in an accident. And that customer could come back to you, sue you for pain and suffering, for the damages to their vehicle. If you have products and completed operations coverage, that would fall under that coverage for your business. Professional liability. This is for those of you that maybe have a contract with customers and you make a promise for what your business can do, and you want to make sure that those promises are backed up by insurance. So examples, a lot of professions that really need to make sure they have professional liability are people like doctors, attorneys, dentists, accountants, consultants, anyone who has a contract. So let's say someone alleges that you did not fulfill your contract. That is something that would fall under professional liability. Or maybe they said that you provided them with erroneous information that they went on to use and caused them a financial loss. So that kind of thing would be covered by professional liability. Automobile coverage seems pretty straightforward. If you have business vehicles, you definitely need commercial auto insurance. But what might not be as clear is if you use your vehicle for business purposes, like to go to the office, but you're not taking product in it and you don't have signage on it, you may want to also consider getting a business policy that includes hired and non-owned auto coverage. Hired and non-owned auto coverage. Hired auto coverage gives you coverage if you rent a vehicle. So let's say you go and you need to go visit businesses out of state. So you fly out of state and you rent a car. If that rental car is for your business and you don't purchase the rental car coverage from that company, your personal policy may not cover a loss that you have. So you want to make sure that you have hired auto coverage. And then the non-owned auto part of that is if you have employees. If they ever do something for the business in their own vehicle, you want to make sure that you have this coverage to extend to them. So people may think, well, my employees don't use their vehicle for the business. They just come to work. Well, what if you asked your employee to make a deposit at the bank on the way home and they get in a car accident? Maybe they rear end somebody. If their carrier finds out that they were on a business errand, it may not be covered under their policy and they will come after your business policy. So those are some ins and outs of the auto coverage that's important. Building coverage and damages to premises rented to you. This is just like what it sounds like. This is just like a homeowner's policy. It's covering the building that you own or the building that you rent for damages. So you want to make sure you have that coverage if you are in that situation. Workers' compensation coverage. You can kind of think of this as health insurance for the workplace for accidents. And it is required by law in the state of Colorado. Even if you only have one employee, even if you only have a part-time employee or an employee that is related to you, still required. So you do not want to get caught without workers' compensation insurance if you have any employees. Doesn't pertain to contract workers, but if they are W-2 employees, then that does get required for workers' comp. Business owner's policy. This is kind of neat. This is a package policy that insurers provide, and it gives you kind of a bundle of packages or bundle of coverages at a package deal. So sometimes you can get higher limits on some of the standalone coverages by buying this in bulk, and usually it's pretty affordable. So what you want to look at is just, are the coverages that are included in this business owner's package relevant to your business, and does it make sense, or would it make more sense to do things standalone? And that's the brochure Hannah was talking about that she'll add to link to this chat so that you guys can take a look at it. It's just a brochure on what American Family includes in their business owners package, and usually they're pretty standard. They may have different limits that different companies offer, but it'll give you an idea of what that looks like. Tools coverage in inland marine. So your general liability policy, if you have that, usually comes with some coverage for your tools and equipment. If you have tools and equipment for your business, you want to make sure that you have that. The inland marine portion is if you have to take your tools out of your place of business. It's in transit, so you need to make sure you have inland marine coverage, not just tools coverage. And inland marine coverage will cover those tools just like your tools coverage does, but it's while you're maybe visiting a job site and working with your tools from theft, from vandalism, fire, anything that could happen to them. One thing to think about on your equipment, if you have items that are a single item that is valued higher, usually the rule of thumb with most carriers is about $1,500, you want to schedule that on your policy because there's a limit on your tools coverage per item. And so if you go over that limit, there may not be coverage for that expensive tool that you have. So make sure that you schedule those tools that are valuable. Employee benefits liability coverage. This is coverage if you have employees, and it covers your the administration of your benefits program. So if you have, say, a health insurance program, work comp, things like that for your employees, if you make an administrative mistake and it causes an employee a loss, there can be a claim under this. So let's say you're onboarding some new employees and you inadvertently forget to add someone to the health insurance plan when you were supposed to, and then they have a personal accident that needs to be paid for and they don't have health insurance. That could be a claim against your employee benefits liability coverage. Sounds similar but different. Employment practice liability, also something that you would want to have if you have employees. This provides you with coverage if an employee feels wronged. So if you get accused of, say, let's see, where is my, if it can give you defense against discrimination, sexual harassment, wrongful termination. If an employee accuses you of any of those things, then that gives you the coverage that you need to protect you for that kind of a loss. Medical payments coverage, also pretty self-explanatory. If someone gets injured on your place of business, whether it doesn't matter whose fault it is, it can be covered under your medical payments coverage. So just an example with the coffee shop again, let's say you have, maybe a small sign near the door and a customer comes in and trips over it and hurts themselves, injures themselves. Rather than them having to sue you through your liability, you have medical coverage, so they can submit a medical bill for their hospital bill, and you can get that paid through your medical payments coverage. Data breach and cyber liability. This is getting a lot of time in the news. People are talking about it. We've got so many people scamming out there. It's just so important to add this coverage to your policy, and it usually is extra to add it, but well worth the money to have this if this is something that would affect your business. So electronic data threats, such as data breaches of your sensitive information or your customers' information that you keep at your place of business, fraud, identity theft, computer attack, software failures, all of those things are covered under data breach. And then the cyber liability portion is if you mistakenly cause some type of cyber issue for someone or another company. So let's say you mistakenly send an email that contains a virus and that causes financial damage to a company. That would be covered under cyber liability. So those are really good things to think about. Last terminology that I want to go through in this section is personal and advertising injury. Usually this is a subsection of your general liability, so it might be included with your general liability coverage, but it focuses on personal injury. So the personal side, like if someone feels they've had libel, slander, invasion of privacy, anything like that. So an example of that would be, let's say you think a customer stole something from you and you accuse them of that, and it turns out they didn't. They could sue you for personal injury, for embarrassment or saying something bad about them. And that could be a lawsuit that would fall under personal injury. And then advertising injury is like copyright infringement. So again, if you sell a drink in your store with a specific name and a large corporation claims that they own the rights to that name, they could come and sue you for copyright infringement, which would be covered under advertising injury. So that's a lot of information, but I want to go on and talk a little bit about how you can use this information. So what can you do to mitigate your risk, to keep from having claims, from having to use your insurance or going through the heartache of it? You're doing it right now, taking classes like this, learning how to be more efficient and effective in operating your business is going to go so far to help you avoid claims. Finding out things that can cause claims, you're going to avoid them in the future by being educated. Follow state laws. If you are regulated or licensed in your industry, make sure you adhere to those laws and take care of legally what you are required to have insurance-wise based on those guidelines. And mitigate your loss so you have fewer claims. A lot of times your insurance carrier will have a mitigation checklist that they can give you for your industry. And it's a really helpful packet of information that you can kind of take and look at your business through insurance eyes. You know, do I have crumbling curbs that somebody could trip over? Just do I have a swimming pool in my childcare business? Probably wouldn't have that, but things that would help you to think about how can I avoid having claims. Protect your data from privacy breaches. So there are companies out there that you can hire. They can come in and set up your computer system so you have firewalls and so that you have the right protection. A lot of times, if you add that cyber liability coverage to your policy, you're going to get some documentation from the insurance carrier that gives you feedback on how to mitigate cyber and all those kinds of data breach losses. So, and then finally, make sure that you have enough protection and the right kind of protection for your business. That will help you to mitigate your losses. Okay, so now what we want to talk about next is I want to give you some tips and tricks for saving on your insurance policy. What can you do to not become insurance poor? Because the idea is to protect your business, not to run you out of business by the expense. So bundle your coverage with one carrier if you're able to. Oftentimes, your personal insurance carrier can help you with business, and then you can get cross discounts between those two. So that's helpful. Also, with your business, if you need work comp and you need commercial auto, if you're able to get those all with one carrier, you can sometimes get a bundled discount on those different lines of insurance. Plan ahead, and if you are able to, if you're going to be getting a quote or you're going to be renewing, try to get with an insurance carrier, an agent, at least 30 days before you renew. That gives them time to really understand your business and get a policy and package that is right for you, and make that something that you're not paying for coverages you don't need. It also gives them time, if they work with different carriers, to shop that and find the best rate for you. The mitigation that we just talked about, the fewer losses you have, the less your insurance is going to cost. It's just like personal insurance. So if you can keep from having those claims, that will help you have lower priced insurance premiums. Pay in full when you can. If it's feasible for you, you can usually save 5 to 10% a year by paying your policy up front. And so that can be a significant savings depending on the amount of premium you have. Talk to your agent and find out, what discounts am I not taking advantage of? Maybe there's just like in personal insurance, maybe there's an automatic payment option that's going to save you, or paperless, things like that will help you save money. And stick with your carrier. If you are happy where you are, stick with your carrier, because you're going to hopefully get some longevity discounts from your carrier. Ask them if they have those. If you are wanting to switch insurance, try not to do it midterm, or check with your agent and see if there's any short rate cancellation, because some companies will charge you a cancellation fee midterm. It's different than personal lines. Personal lines, very rarely do I see a carrier that charges you for canceling midterm. But in commercial lines, you see it more often. So check with your agent and see if that's something that they will do before you cancel your insurance. Now, if you're going out of business, that's a different story. But if you're just switching carriers, you would want to check on that to not pay unnecessary fees. So I wanted to give you all some next steps to help you take the information that I talked about today and find a use for it and put it into action. So if you have a policy, I would recommend that you review your coverage with your agent. We've talked about some terminology here, and maybe something struck a chord with you and you think, this is something that I need in my business. Make sure it's in your policy. Have your agent take a look at it with you. If you have a policy and you want a new quote, try to do that 30 to 45 days out if you're able to. Start talking to your trusted insurance agent and ask them for help with covering your business, so that you have plenty of time and you're not rushing into anything. I always recommend that business owners think about having a business continuation policy. And what this means is, very basically, it's life insurance on a key person to your business. That might be you as the business owner, or it could be your business manager, somebody that if they were to pass away, the business would come to a grinding halt. If you have a life insurance policy, which is not very expensive, you can get a term policy for this, and we're talking between $10 to $20 a month potentially. So you would get that in the amount of what it would cost to run your business for, say, 3 months, the payroll, everything. There's a lot of people that count on your business, employees, customers, your family. So if you can have this business continuation set up so that you have operating expenses if something happens to you or another key person, that's going to do a lot to help you be able to continue that business and see whether it's to wrap things up or to keep it going. Next steps, if you do not have any coverage yet, request a quote from a trusted insurance professional. We're happy to help. We work with lots of businesses. Review your personal insurance as well. So if you have personal policies, I recommend that you review them at the same time. Take a look at everything. A lot can change, especially with businesses. If you start getting into some new industry or you start offering a new service, you want to make sure that it's covered. So always review that with your insurance carrier and review it when you first start your policy as well. Let's see. I think that's everything that I want to. I'm just checking to see if I forgot to talk to about anything. I'm going to stop share. Well, I want to just share my contact information again in case anybody missed that. You can jot that down if you don't want to share your question with the group. And then I'm going to stop sharing and just kind of open it up to any questions that you guys have.
Yeah, thank you, Connie. That was really helpful. And I know a couple of you just jumped on a little bit late. So for any latecomers, you will be receiving the recording of that presentation later on today. But yeah, we have some time for questions. So feel free to come off mute and ask those or put them in the chat. And I'll kick us off just to get us started. Could you go, you talked a little bit about why you would need to let your insurance agents know about any home-based businesses. Could you go into a little more detail about why a home-based business wouldn't be covered under your normal home policy within your home?
Yeah. So sometimes companies have exclusions. They may say, we don't allow a business to operate out of your home, or they might say, if anything happens related to your business is excluded, we wouldn't cover a loss from that. So that's one reason. There's also specialty coverages like the whole list we just talked about that aren't offered. Mostly your homeowner's policy is going to offer you liability coverage, and sometimes if you add an endorsement for your business, it'll offer you business personal property coverage. So if you have things that are specific to your business, then they will be covered under that home policy if you endorse it and add it on there. If you don't, and let's say there's a fire and you're going through everything, you've lost all of your personal property, and you say, oh, and I have all of my business samples and it's worth like $10,000. I have the bookcases I had it on. The adjuster's going to say, well, business equipment is not covered under your personal insurance, your personal property. So you want to make sure that you endorse that on your policy.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful to know.
No problem.
There's another question in the chat about how often you suggest we review our coverages.
Yeah, great question, Leah. I would recommend every year. We personally reach out to all of our customers each year. We kind of do it alphabetically. It doesn't have to be when you renew. And we just try to reach out to them at the same time each year and say, hey, let's talk for half an hour and find out what's changed. We can tell you about new discounts we have, new products we have, and then you can tell us if you have changed anything, or maybe you have something that you've added to your business that gets you a discount, and we can uncover that. So once a year is a great time to review your insurance. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm just so excited for you. I think owning a business is such a great opportunity to have the freedom to do what you want and live your dreams. So really excited for all of you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Connie.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Connie right now? I guess I have another one that I'm always just curious from people in the insurance. Oh, here's one from Henry, probably more important than mine. Do you have any advice on type of entity for a business? How does that play into what your coverage?
Yeah, I would definitely consult with a lawyer on that. For us personally, when we started our agency, we started out as a sole proprietor, and then in working with our CPA and our lawyer, we determined at what point in our growth we needed to incorporate, and now we're an S corp. So that's not something I'm qualified to answer, unfortunately. So.
For sure. And we do have legal consultants at the SBDC that would be happy to talk with you about what those different options are. And here is, well, if it'll post, here's the link to where you can schedule those appointments.
Yeah. And umbrella insurance. I thank you, Leah, again, because I forgot to mention that. That was one of the things I was going to talk about. Yes, there's so an umbrella policy, whether it's for personal or business, is that it's just like what it sounds like. It goes over everything and it gives you an additional liability limit. So if you go through your underlying policy limit with a claim, this gives you extra protection. Usually it's $1 million or $2 million. And yes, you can get that for both personal or business, and I highly recommend it. Our average policy for a business umbrella is about $300 a year. It's not terribly expensive, and boy, the customers that we've had that have had to use it, they're like, thank you. I'm so glad I have that, because it could ruin you financially if you don't. So good point.
Great. Yeah, as I was mentioning, one of the things I'm always curious to hear from professionals in the insurance world are, I know we went over a lot of things that could happen and you want to make sure you're covered for in your business. Are there any like top offenders or things that you see come up for businesses like all the time?
Tool theft, car accidents. I have a commercial customer who was in a car accident. Someone else hit him, but he had all of his tools for his business in his personal vehicle. And so his inland marine coverage covered his tools because they were beyond what the other company was willing to pay. I'm trying to think. And lawsuits, employees getting injured on the job and filing work comp claims, or wrongful termination, things like that. I see that too.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know another question that we hear often from businesses is what the process looks like. Like if you don't have insurance right now, what does the process look like to get started?
Yeah, it's super easy. We usually try to do a short intake that maybe takes 20 to 30 minutes, and we'll ask you questions like, what is the legal structure of your business? What do you anticipate your gross sales to be? We're going to ask you, tell us about your daily operations. What do you do? And we want to learn about your business and just get that basic information, and then we'll take that back and create a proposal for you. A lot of businesses are, this is something we should talk about, are audited. So if you don't know what your gross sales are going to be, you're just starting out. When you estimate that, the insurance cost is based on how big your business is, how much business you're doing. And then at the end of the year, they'll do an audit and they'll check to see how much your gross sales really were. And then you will either get a refund if you overestimated it, or a charge if you underestimated it. So if you start a policy and things are going along really well and you're growing a lot faster than you anticipated, check in with your CPA so you can adjust that, but also check in with your insurance agent so that you can adjust your work comp rating so that you don't get hit with a big bill at the end. So.
Good to know. Henry asks, do you know how to get workers' comp with a regular plan?
Regular plan. I'm not quite sure I understand that question. Pretty much any insurance carrier should be able to offer that with the liability coverage that you're getting. So maybe Henry's talking about like the state plan. So Pinnacle is, it's PINACOL, I believe, is if you have a business and you can't get insurance, work comp insurance through other carriers for whatever reason, Pinnacle is where you can go to get it. So that's a good place to go if you can't get it with the company that does the liability for you. And I'm sorry, Henry, if I didn't answer your question right. Please let me know if I didn't.
That's a great resource to know about, though. That's thanks for bringing that up. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if there's any more clarification we can give Henry, feel free to put more info there in the chat or come off mute. And looks like that was helpful. So thank you.
Okay, good.
Another one that came to mind is, are there certain industries that have a harder time finding coverage, or like, does that play into it at all?
It's hard for me to say as a general rule because I just represent American Family. Now, we have a brokerage department, so if American Family can't help our customers, we can go, and that's additional companies that we can work with, which is great. But the hardest companies I personally have placing are contractors that are doing building. In Colorado, we have so many laws that are in favor of the homeowner or against the builder. So that one is a little bit hard, but not impossible. Nothing is impossible. Things that are out of the ordinary. I have a customer who, anybody who does something a little bit different and the insurance industry hasn't seen it, you have to be creative to figure out how to find coverage for it. So anything out of the ordinary can make it a little bit more difficult, but I don't want that to ever squash anyone's dreams of their business. That's just a hurdle, and that's for your insurance agent to figure out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think you've probably made this point already, but I just want to bring up again that sometimes I think it can feel overwhelming for a business owner to look at their list of all the coverages that they would like to have and feel like that's unattainable right now. And I think the advice we've given before in these sorts of classes is, you can start with a smaller scale of that. And as your business grows, you can increase those values, or you can add on new coverages as sometimes your policies can change as your business changes and grows.
Exactly. Yeah. And as you're, as you're just starting out, you don't have as many assets. Maybe you don't need an umbrella policy. Maybe you can get by with lower auto limits because there's not as much to take from your business, sadly. But as you grow, and that's why it's good to do your review each year with your agent, then you can add those components in. And your agent should be a consultant with you, talking to you about your business and what's important to you. People have different risk thresholds. So what we work really hard to do is just educate our customers and then let them make that informed decision as to what's important to them. So I will go over all of these coverages and get completely different answers from people as to what's important to them. So it just depends on the individual business owner.
Great. Great. Well, any other questions from anyone for Connie while we've got her on the line right now? Doesn't look like it, probably because she answered everything so thoroughly.
I went through a lot, sorry.
Well, we really appreciate it. It's all really helpful information and great resources for us to refer back to. So we really appreciate.
Well, good. Thanks for having me.
One more that came through though, and it might probably depends, but how much does a liability plan cost?
Yeah, Henry, when I was saying the average, so for a small policy, depending on what your exposure is, what your business industry is, I've seen them as little as $500 a year. On average, our business owners are about just under $100 a month, and that's for whether that's a general liability or a small business owner's package policy. But again, it depends. It really depends on your industry and how big your business is.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And so like we said, Connie's information is in the chat. Will also be in the follow-up and our scheduling link if you want to meet with one of our advisors to talk more in depth about your specific business, any questions that you have, situations that you're going through. That link is in the chat as well. And I'll send out that follow-up email that will have my contact information if you have any trouble getting scheduled or need any other support for your business. So I think that's all we have for you today. We thank you all for joining us, and we'll give you 15 minutes back in your lunch hour, hopefully.
There you go. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.